Our next topic is corn leaf aphids, and I got an old story for you, Darren.
Okay.
All right, so...
All your stories are getting old,
Well,
Brian. Go ahead.
That's probably a good point. Okay, so anyway, this is about 20 years ago, and I worked for FMC, an insecticide company, basically. They had a lot of great entomologists working for them and everything, and it was... my very first job with them, I was out scouting cornfields looking for corn borers, trying to determine, well, when should we spray? And I found lots of corn leaf aphids, and I'd bring this stuff back and talk to these great entomologists and just say, guys, there are all kinds of corn leaf aphids out there. I think something should be done. And they just laughed. They said, Brian, nobody needs to spray for corn leaf aphids. It's not a problem.
See, it was your moment of brilliance, and you didn't even know it, Brian. You were way ahead of your time because, yes, corn leaf aphids are a big problem. The challenge is much of the research finished up in like 1973.
Well, here's the thing. We shouldn't even say it's a big problem. It's an issue on some farms in some years. Here's the whole thing. If you've got high yield potential and you have a high corn price, and if you're in kind of drier region, which we are, and actually we've got all of those factors because in our farm we're getting about 200 bushel corn average, and we only get 22 inches of total annual precipitation counting the snow. Plus we have a fairly decent corn price out there.
Yeah.
We are in the target zone. That's the whole issue. If you've got all those factors, corn leaf aphids could be a major problem if you're seeing quite a few of them.
I think this is interesting. I was just talking to an agronomist recently, and he said, well, you know what? You look back at these charts that tell you when to spray for corn leaf aphids, they only go up to $2.40 corn. What do I do at $4 plus corn? Well, that's a great question. The other thing is the insecticide costs have come way, way down. So it doesn't really cost that much. Now the challenge is the timing of this whole thing, because we're talking about corn leaf aphids that are, up around that tassel and in the whorl and around the ears. I know you've seen them around the ears of sweet corn. A lot of times you'll see corn leaf aphids there. They come late. Chances are you don't have a sprayer that's going to get through the field, a lot like the fungicides we talked about earlier. So you end up hiring a plane. In many cases, at least with farmers that I talk to, they say, well, you know what? I think I need to spray for disease, but I'm not sure. I think I need to spray for these corn leaf aphids, but I'm not sure. But when you add both those things together and say, man, I've got a couple hundred corn leaf aphids on my plants, plus I think I'm going to have some disease pressure out there too. Boy, you put those two things together, and now all of a sudden it doesn't make it very difficult to pay for that spray, because if you have $7 or $8 worth of aerial charge, plus you're going to spend, say, $10 by the time you add insecticide and fungicide together, maybe a little more depending on where you're at in the country. It doesn't take that many bushels anymore. It only takes 3 or 4 bushels.
Let's talk about this
this
corn leaf aphid thing, and specifically here, you can run out there with Brigade or Fanfare, generic capture basically, which will not only get corn leaf aphids, it will also control things like corn rootworm beetles, grasshoppers, you'll get spider mites, you'll get just about any bug that's out there, any insect you've got, you'll wipe it out for $3 or $4. So it's not much. Here's our whole point. There are many farmers in the country, probably you, who are going to spray some fungicide in your corn this year. At least go scout your fields. And if you're seeing in the range of 50 to 400 aphids per plant, you need to spray. Especially if you're 400 or over, with the kind of market conditions we have, I would be spraying. If you're 50 to 400, if you've got high yield like on our farm, if we're going to spray fungicide anyway and we see that many aphids, I'm absolutely throwing that insecticide in. It's cheap.
Well, here's the whole thing. That threshold really varies depending on the amount of pressure you have and the opportunity you have to make money with that crop, how much yield you can raise and what the price per bushel is. So you need to look at all those factors and the cost of insecticide before you make your decision.
Well, that's the whole thing, because if you've got $4 corn, it costs you $4 to treat, it's 1 bushel. So when are you going to gain 1 bushel? That's really what we're after here. And in dry conditions, you're going to gain that bushel back sooner if the threshold is lower. In wetter conditions where you've got good moisture, you might need a few more aphids to be able to justify that spraying. There hasn't been a lot of research done on this over the years. Darren talked about this 1973 study that was done.
But there were some studies that were done last year. We've been talking about this now for 2 or 3 years on the show, and we did finally see some university research last year. So it's something that you need to look at in your area, what kind of thresholds the universities are talking about there. For me, as long as you consider the price of insecticide, the price of the crop, the yield potential of that crop, and then look at that threshold, I think if you get all those factors working together, you can do something that makes economic sense for your farm.
Well, corn leaf aphids aren't always a problem in corn, but something it seems like is always a problem is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you what it is coming up next.